Welcome back to our Tortious interference series. My name is Alexander Mathai, as many of you probably know by now. This is the sixth installment of this series. I'm using this educational opportunity as both a way to help out the community or members of the community that may be struggling with some of the same things, and also to act as a video journal if anything unforeseen should happen to me or the company Texas Movement International LLC. I'm going to combine a few topics today because there's mutual benefit among diasporas if we go over these things. And hopefully it sparks a few ideas in you for your own content creation. And if you guys are young streamers or anything like that, these are some opportunities for you to learn about pitfalls you can avoid in your career. Usually the pitfalls you'll undergo will be in your late teens, early 20s when hormones are at their peak and when decision making is at its most precarious. So today, I'm going to call this the cowardice of pity. Okay? Subtitle is going to be Sand Nigger Self-Deprecation. Okay? So when I was in third grade, third and probably fourth grade, it was around that 1996, 1997, 1998 time period. Okay? I was attending an elementary school known as Woodcrest Elementary School. Now, if any of you have seen the cartoon show The Boondocks, which came from the comic strip by Aaron Magruder, the father and the two boys, there was no, the grandfather and the two boys, there was no father and mother. They moved to a community called Woodcrest. Now, there's all kind of coincidences in Hollywood that happen, and we can't over-personalize these things. But when you see those types of relatable names, you know, it perks your interest, and it makes you think about what are some of the lessons we can learn from these dog whistles. So when we think about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, we think about kind of two sides of the same coin, two different approaches to um, the struggle for equal rights and equal protection under the law. We most recently this weekend went through a little bit of a winter storm, and there was a gentleman in Minnesota by the name of Alex Pretty, spelled Pretti, almost as if it was to say pretty, like Alex was a pretty boy or something like that. But his striking resemblance to Ari Shafir, the guy who was the most excited about Kobe Bryant's death immediately the day of his demise in the helicopter in Calabasas. All these things are very interesting coincidences that are, there's no explanation for these things. One of the things you guys have to learn about the algorithm is that it is a form of nutrition. Okay, so the input that you get, the output from there, and the input that comes into your end, it goes into your eyes, and your eyes are connected directly to your brain. So whatever you see and what you hear, that's going into your brain as programming. Okay. So what Texas Movement Media would like to do is give you uh, more holistic programming. The same way Dr. Sebi or other Eastern or Chinese medicine, herbal. All right, we're going to be dealing with a little bit of interruptions from time to time. So what we're going to do is splice these things together as we're able to. So, like we said, the input from your algorithm is nutrition for you. And we want to make sure that you're getting alternative types of nutrition so that you're not depressed constantly by the influx of information. And I think we have established enough of a pedigree and enough of a visibility on the algorithm so that you can kind of trust what we're saying is at least accurate from our perspective. Now, if you want to go to the mainstream side and hear their perspective, if you want to listen to Rachel Maddow, pretend to be a man, and if you want to listen to Bill Maher, pretend to be a house nigger and all that type of stuff, you're more than welcome to do that. But over here on this side, we're instituting kind of a new landscape. Okay, so in the same way, the Louisiana Purchase added a ton of land mass to the United States of America, and the gold rush gave a lot of opportunity for people to gain wealth in the 1840s. This is a new rush of artificial intelligence and also American Indian intelligence. Okay, so back to sand nigger self-deprecation. Okay, so in minority communities, what happens is, we will have to confront the mainstream community when it comes to the things that we need for our basic life. If you've looked at any of the lower income neighborhoods in the United States, predominantly Black and Hispanic areas, you'll notice that a lot of those places are what we call food deserts. So there will be plenty of liquor stores and bodegas and corner stores that have all types of poor nutrition kind of foods stocked in them, often expired and things like that. But the places like Whole Foods and higher level grocery stores and farmers markets are in the wealthier parts of town, and they're priced at a higher price point, so that a lot of times people won't have access to those kinds of things. So, like me for myself, I lost a job recently. I was assistant civil engineer for the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. Now, this was a job I was probably not qualified for, but I went down to Texas and took the fundamentals of engineering exam in 2012. I didn't study for it. I bought the study guide book and let it sit there for 6 months while myself and Menzavius Edwards were training on the track, and he just kind of dragged me around the track in 2012, and I appreciate him for that. But in order to pay the bills at that time, I tried to work at a gym. I didn't want anything to do with engineering, but there was a small firm in Fort Worth that took me in, and they made it a point to tell me they hired me because I was the only one that spoke English. There were other applicants that had master's degrees in civil engineering, probably much more qualified than me, but they were foreign-born Indians. And in that small environment, it was just a 3-person, 4-person firm of Caucasian American, good old boys, which I don't have a problem with. I'm a good old boy for the most part, besides the bare minimum melanin count that requires me to be segregated against. Okay, this is just kind of the thing that I've been dealing with my entire life. And my father has dealt with this kind of meritocratic lie, as most Indian academics have. And so it comes back to the Malcolm and Martin kind of comparison. It's the approach that you're going to take to these kind of resistances. Now, these people will come and take everybody else's stuff. And then when you come and say, okay, well, we're happy to work underneath you. We're happy to be your second in command. We don't want to be the face of the operation. I'm not Vivek Ramaswamy. Okay? I'm not trying to be in charge of anything except for Texas Movement International. And if you notice, I don't want to live in a white neighborhood. I don't want to live in a Jewish neighborhood. I don't want to go to a white church. I don't want my children going to white schools. I want separate drinking fountains. I don't want integration. I don't want to be around you people. I don't want to talk to your women. Like, that's the only thing. Whatever Birth of a Nation in the first time that was in the White House was making you scared about, I want that outcome. I want that outcome. I don't want to be in the White House. I want to be in my house where you don't want to go. You know how the Potter's house is way far away than on everything? When you go down the highway and you go one direction to go to Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship and the other one to go to the Potter's house, and it's a Potter house is like a destination thing, and you got to get there an hour beforehand just to get a parking space where you don't have to take a shuttle to get to the church. That's what I want to be. I want my house to be that. And then I want a Friendsgiving because my family is not invited to my Thanksgiving, because they take a different approach to confrontation to these evil, devilish things than I do. Now, as I told you before, I was raised in an environment where any deviation from the white man's King James Version Word of God involved this. Hold on, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, of course. Ha, aye. Well, you people are lucky. And I bet the moment I'm done with it, I'll find it. Well, the stick. You remember the stick, right? The stick was the answer for any deviation I made from white American Anglo-Saxon Protestant society. Okay? And the great thing about Indian American men, and we're coming to the Sam Nigger self-deprecation. The great thing about Indian American men in America is that they take on all the feminine characteristics of American women. So, despite having the so-called greatest relationship with the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, despite saying that the Hebrews 11, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, when it's time to discipline and corral the children and use them as tools, or use even your wife as a tool for fiat currency gains in the brokerage account, managed by a Jew that has no interest in you whatsoever, except mocking your very existence. If any deviation from that goal comes to the maestro, then all resources are cut off. Now, when I was finished with my engineering degree, that's a degree that my father couldn't have gotten on his best day if he had 1,000 years to do it. But I gave him that degree that took me 6 years to get, and I had to take summer classes every summer, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, plus 2 more years. I was a resident advisor for 2 years, finessed that, and then I also was a secretary of American Society of Civil Engineers, helped out with the Black Student Union a little bit, did not want to participate in NSBE because I felt like that was stepping over the line a little bit too much, and it was already African dominated, and I was pissing off everybody as it was. Okay? And all this was to dive into the box of a stereotype so that I could work myself to death, so that uh, for there was no reward for that. The next step in that process would be, now you have to marry who we say without a prenuptial agreement. Now there's no biblical defense. Now Jesus said, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar, and give to God what is God's." Marriage does not belong to Caesar, but Malayalis don't talk about that. Kerala American preachers don't talk about that. As much as the Kerala American diaspora prioritizes marriage, you would think that there would be templates drafted of prenuptial agreements so that we could all live in peace and safety, so that divorce would not be an issue. And frankly, I want this done by the time PCNet comes to Schaumburg. Okay? That's a side note. And guys, we're going to have cutoffs from outside interference from time to time, so you're going to see breaks in this video. Self-deprecation is making yourself smaller for the appeasement of somebody else, so that you'll get the tacit approval of them if you live as their pet. Now, as a child, you kind of grow up with this. When you're in an Indian home in a white neighborhood, you're essentially in a concentration camp. Okay, the SS is your parents and your family. Now, sometimes what happens is 2 generations of parents live there. So you have a grandmother who is using her mother-in-law status to create an immense amount of stress in the marriage itself. So she will use the negative patriarchy experience she experienced in the colonized India, and now she will use that pattern of control to destroy the peace of mind of the couple with which she's staying, even though they're providing her free room and board and prioritizing her needs rather than their own. So that feminine ungratefulness passes down into the men of our community. And secondarily, it comes because a lot of our community came over here because of the extremely hard work of nurses that came here in the late 60s and early 70s, and then used the American immigration program to bring their family over. And that's a very difficult process. Okay? So the things you're seeing with ICE and immigration and things like that, maybe it's designed to trigger us, but it really doesn't, because a lot of us do these things in the proper paperwork. In this spirit, I went to the Illinois Institute of Technology to obtain a civil engineering degree, because I knew that at the very least, if my parents could say, "Oh, that's my second son, he's a little crazy, but he went and got his civil engineering degree and his EIT license from the Illinois Institute of Technology," that covers them when they have to go to church and talk to their other first-generation peers. Now, the other thing you have to remember is that house niggers don't like being around their peers. They want to be superior to their peers. In the same way Gandhi in South Africa wanted to be superior to the Kafirs or whatever the niggers were called in South Africa, my father wanted to be superior to the Kerala Americans here in America because of his educational status. Now, the problem there is that he was superior not only to the Kerala Americans here academically, but even to his white and Jewish counterparts. But because his white and Jewish counterparts are so shrimp-dicked intellectually, they ostracized him the same way I'm being ostracized now. So in his mind, what he feels like is that misery should enjoy company. Whatever alpha he began, my omega must finish. And he wants my ambiguous skin tone and my blue eyes to be the Troy Zimmerman white child that he always wanted, because he himself wants to be recognized as that fully white individual. This is the damage that colonialism brings to a family. Now, if I deviate from that behaviorally and leave the home, that stress is then, in civil engineering, there's something called the distributed load. And so, for example, if this is a platform and there's a force, one singular force placed here, the board will go down this way. But if you notice, if I place the force here, it tilts the board this way, right? But if I place two forces equally here, it means the same thing as one force going this way. Now imagine there's three forces there. The board, which let's say this reaction board represents my father's attitude in the home, that will resist all three forces equally. And if I'm sitting here, my brother's here, and my mother's here, those forces will balance out and it will zero out. Okay? So when I go and manage real estate transactions for my father in Dallas and earn him money simply by writing or signing a document, and I manage the property that is being developed, and his brother manages the real estate transaction, so he just has to sit back and wait. Unfortunately, like Saul under the pomegranate tree, he gets to start to be very, very comfortable sitting back like this and waiting for money to come in. Because he feels that that kind of compounding interest, he feels that his children are the compounding interest of the pain that he experienced in the late 90s and early 2000s when it comes to work. But he has a master's in African American literature, so he knows the difference between the house Negro and the field Negro. This is why this kind of discipline is very important, children. And I'm not saying that you have to publicly execute your father's character in the way that I'm doing now, but I'm sitting in his seat now. So I'm taking on the responsibility of his seat for you. So the poison and the detoxification needs to happen from his generation. And if it happens in him specifically, it will reverberate throughout the United States and Canada diasporas. So you Malayalis need to be very careful when you talk to me now. And over the next 6 months, as you prepare for PCNAC, you're coming to my house now. And I have the stick in my hand now. So when we talk about tortious interference, why this matters for people building power, I'm not talking about power to take over anything. I'm about taking power of my own life, which you do not have access to. Contracts, inheritances, business expectancies, and employment relationships are the pipes that carry money and stability into a community. Interference cuts those pipes off. Now, we have to talk about inheritance. Inheritance is not just money. It's not just genetic or intellectual ability. It is spiritual. So, a man, Tony Evans likes to say, a man reaps what he sows. Now, I always wondered why a man like Dr. Tony Evans would stoop so low as to partake in Nike level gossip. And then I realized who his executive pastor was at the time. And then I started to look at all the churches in South Dallas. And then I started to look at all the black churches in America. And inevitably, there was a white Jew behind the scenes, manipulating what could be said and what was not allowed to be said. When you analyze the autopsy of Malcolm X, even though the movie says that men came up to the stage and shot up at him like this, the fact remains is the bullets came at a downward trajectory. I don't think there's any coincidence that the last name of someone that I was uh, thought to be close to was named Wilson. In many black and marginalized spaces, the pattern is not just we lost a deal, but somebody higher up made a phone call and suddenly everything froze. How it typically shows up in real life: a church, employer, or institution quietly discourages someone from working with you, partnering with you, or honoring prior commitments because your independence is seen as a threat. Why am I so comfortable talking against the black gay community? Why am I so familiar with that kind of gossip? It's because the Kerala American diaspora gossips in the same way. All of you went through the torture of your mother-in-laws living with you until they died. And what did you do? You passed that disease on to your children. And as soon as humanly possible, you shoved them into a marriage. Rather than taking that money and putting it in a trust or some kind of fund. All you people know a finance person. All you people are addicted to Jewish approval. Where is our version of the Heder Iskalon? I'm the whitest one among you. I should be treated like a god. And that's precisely why I did what I did. People in our community choose pity and autism as shields because of the compressive pressure of these things compounding over time. And eventually death. And even after death, you're not satisfied. You need to collect more and more and more. Because your sphinx no longer shits bricks for your pyramid. Now, sand nigger is a term that I've been called many times. I'm not using it to equate with, the history of nigger in this country. And black people, I think you know what my intentions are there. By the grace of God, uh, Chicago culture is a strong enough historical culture where even Atlanta and Dallas and Houston and LA recognize its value to the diaspora history. And the Nation of Islam and all those types of things are here. And well, thank you, Louis Farrakhan, for the example. Samson Sabu is going to be publicly disciplined now. Justin Sabu as well. He's not going to be able to see, and we're going to find your father too. Because for him to endorse this means that he was party to it as well. So your mother will be a grieving woman by the time I'm done with you. In 1996 and 1997, we were discussing, I was in third or fourth grade, the East and West rap beef. Puffy, it was Puff Daddy at that time, Biggie and Tupac dying. Now these two people, I don't know who started writing for whom. Tupac seemed to be the more talented of the two, but he was a gay kid from a art school connected to Jada, and now that's being used as some embarrassment for all these people are homosexuals. Now, as I told you before, homosexuality itself is not the problem. It is the definition of homosexuality being a prerequisite to having a life in this country as a minority. That's the thing I have a problem with. Because you're not going to sit here and tell my boys at the age of 5, 6, 7 years old that instead of procreating with their own sisters, not incest, you fucking disgusting monkeys, with their own beautiful creations within their own diaspora, that they must Romans 1:26 themselves into Jewish abominations. Now, the priorities of the East and the West Coast were very different. The East Coast, even though it had Biggie, who was a Jamaican-born person talking about homosexual activity, which in itself is a huge crime. But the East Coast at that time was known for its more conscious view of society and race relations and so on and so forth. People like Nas and Mobb Deep and all those people were giving us very, very clear ways to look at the deception that we were encountering from the Jewish community and from Jewish media. They were speaking to us very clearly. Now, say what you want about Jay-Z and Dame Dash and Rockefeller and all those things. They took it to the next level. Listen, nobody's perfect, okay? Now, witchcraft is a no-go for me, okay? But as you grow and as you age, hopefully you learn lessons about life. When you have children, you recognize how important these lessons are. Now, I had to take on the responsibility of learning these lessons before I had children because I had many children essentially following my example. A lot of this was because of my racially ambiguous appearance. Okay? That's why I take a lot of lessons from Bruce Lee. I take a lot of lessons from Jet Li and his epic films, Q and Ja and that school of thought. Okay, the Japanese samurai, very important to me. And even people like Joe Rogan, I'm very grateful for. Okay? I don't mind that people like Ari Shafir exist. If you want to live in that Tom Green kind of corner of the world and Bill Maher and Howard Stern and mock minority race relations and things like that, and have your token black people to, if you're paying them and that's what they want to do, fine. Okay? But I want a place on the opposite side of the spectrum. Okay? Ray Daniels is an influencer that said, Atlanta makes you proud to be black, and LA makes you forget that you're black. Okay? So, as I said, as we take the derivative of blackness, that's how I look at the Kerala American diaspora. So, there's two schools of thought, my father's school of thought and my school of thought. My father's passed his school of thought on to my brother, only through fear and intimidation. Okay? My brother and I both were isolated socially, both in elementary, middle school, and high school. Okay, but I was able to kind of trade on my not well. Yeah, I was able to exchange my racial ambiguity and my relative academic ability for a little bit of social understanding. A lot of this was because I was able to look at examples in the past and be kind of see where we're at. And be kind of comforted by that.